Hi guys, before we start, I want to give a plug to our Discord. The link is in our description below. If you ever want to ask me any questions about any of the videos that I did, I'll be happy to join in and answer your questions. You can also subscribe to our newsletter, which is sent 3 times a week, where you can get all the latest and greatest articles about web dev in general to your inbox. The link is also in the description below. So let's talk about Cloudflare Workers. So if you have no idea what Cloudflare Workers is, I can explain to you. Cloudflare Workers is their take on the serverless movements. Serverless movement is the movement in the web dev world where we move to server-free deployment of our code. What this means is that you will focus on writing the logic of your code base instead of worrying about setting up servers, maintaining it, and scaling it. This is all done seamlessly from Cloudflare or any CDN provider, and they will take care of all that work for you, so you don't have to worry about them. All you have to do is write your logic, upload to the server, to their edge server, and every time somebody makes a request to a specific endpoint, they will invoke your logic instantly, and they will execute it very, very quickly in a couple of milliseconds. So every time you run, they'll start up some sort of a thing called isolate, which is similar to a concept of containers, if you ever heard of Docker containers, but this is orders of magnitude faster than Docker containers. So it will immediately execute and run your code and then shut down. So this will run on all of their infrastructure. So Cloudflare has servers all around the world. They will automatically pick the server that's closest to the user and execute the code. So in the end, you get exceptional performance on your code and you get the ability to scale seamlessly. So this is very, very attractive if you're a software engineer. So today we'd like to explore the project called Cloudflare Workers, which is their take on serverless. So to get started, feel free to go to workers.cloudflare.com and sign up for an account. Once you sign up for an account, you can log in. And I already signed up and have an account. I am in there. So as you can see, I am allowed 100,000 requests per day because I am on the free plan. But that's fine. So let's go to our terminal and figure out how we can start building a project with Cloudflare Workers. So first, you need the npm tool. If you are not in the Node.js world, npm is a tool where you can install additional packages to your terminal. Here, we need to do an npm install -g command for global. So now this command from Cloudflare will be available in any context. So you can do @Cloudflare \Wrangler. This is a tool that we're using to build Cloudflare function. After a couple of seconds, now you should have the command line tool available. You can do Wrangler --version, and now you have version 1.15, and we are good to go. So the next thing we need to do is we need to generate a shell, like a boilerplate file for our Wrangler, for our Cloudflare worker function. So first, you need to go to the directory that you would like to set up your project, and then type in Wrangler. After you install, before we do that, we need to set up to make sure that we are logged into our account. So when you develop, your project will be deployed to your own sandbox. So to do that, you need to do Wrangler login. So it'll ask you about logging in. So this will authorize the tool to use your account to have these permissions. So click on Authorize Wrangler, and now the authorization process is complete. You should be logged in. And here it tells me it's successfully done, and we have our configuration file done. And now we need to generate a new file. So let's generate our project, okay? Go to the directory that you want to work from, and we'll do a command called Wrangler generate. Let's call this Penta worker. So this will generate a Wrangler file in the directory that you're working on. And let's take a look. There you go. We got a couple of files in here that are generated automatically. And as you can see in the terminal below, it says you need to update the following field. in this file before continuing. So let's go to wrangler.toml and let's update the account ID with what's shown here. So now this will bind this project to my account. Great. So let's take a look at we are ready to start working on this, right? So let's take a look at what a typical code look like in a Cloudflare function. Now remember, this code will be executed inside of a Cloudflare serverless server. Well, that's a pretty oxymoron, but it will be executed inside Cloudflare's environment. And all the other stuff, it's done. Like, we don't need to worry about running a server, listening to requests or stuff. All of that stuff is already done. So you are executing in the context of Cloudflare. And you have all of these things available to you for you to write your code on. So if you have any experience with Node, you are probably pretty familiar with this code base, with what this code is doing here. Let me zoom in a little bit. So what this is saying is, when you have a fetch event from Cloudflare, don't worry about what that is. You will learn more about lifecycles in Cloudflare Workers in a later video. But for now, we just know that whenever we have a request from the user for this URL, call the handle request function. This is a very simple async function which will respond with the string. This is the body of the response. And you can set a couple of headers on it. So here we're just responding with a plain text called hello worker. So let's change that to penta worker. Okay, so now that's done. So what do we do next? Let's say we want to test our code. How do we test this without like deploying it? Well, you can do it with this command. So you can do wrangler dev. Oops. Oh, we're not in the folder. So we had to cd into our folder. Now we do wrangler dev. So as you can see, it will. So what's happening really interesting is that Cloudflare actually uploads our code to their server in the background, even though we're developing this locally. But they have the capability to instantly upload our code and execute it. So if we go to this port here, this is actually proxy to their server. So if we go there, as you can see that our code actually executes right away. So if you look at our logs, you can see that the request is actually coming from pentaworker.pentacode.workers.dev. If you go to my account domain here, this is the subdomain that I set up when I made my account, and it tells me that all my code will be executed within this context. So as you can see, when I make a request to localhost, it actually proxies that to Cloudflare. So that's amazing. Now, let's say you are done with this code and you want to deploy it to a production environment in a place that everybody can see. Well, you can do this very easily with wrangler publish. When you do this, it will upload the code to the production environment of your Cloudflare worker. Now, I don't have a custom domain set up. So if you have a custom domain, let's say www.pentacode.com, you will need to do some extra steps to tell this function where you want to publish that to. And that's where the route and zone ID is for. But since I don't have any of that, I'm going to ignore it. So by default, it will publish the code to this URL. So if I go there right now, as you can see, I see the same URL, and this URL can be reached by anybody in the world. And it's that easy. This is a very, very basic hello world example of Cloudflare Worker. Now, if you're interested in this, if I refresh this, I used to have 4 requests per day. So if I refresh, now it's 8. So I actually used up some of my bandwidth every time I went there. So remember, every time you make a request, so when you make a request to this URL, Cloudflare will start a new isolate on their endpoint, and then they execute the code and they shut it down. So this is what that is. Every request, all of that happens on every single request. It just happens so quick that you don't even notice. So when I refresh, like in milliseconds, they start a server, serve the code, and shut it down. It's crazy. So if you're interested in like what this thing supports, Cloudflare Workers can support multiple languages. So it does JavaScript or TypeScript. It does WASM. So if you have any C++ or heavy backend, code, like a video game. I've seen people writing video games on this. It's pretty cool. But you have all of these languages which can be compiled to JavaScript. So there is a secondary step for them to compile this JavaScript. But all of these languages you can write your code in, and they have these boilerplates available, which you can specify in the command line tool, and you can write code in these languages and deploy it to the edge. It's amazing. So how does that work? Like your limits for my plan, I have the free plan. They have free plan and they have bundled. So the bundle version costs $5 a month, and you can get a lot of things with this $5 a month. So right now I am on the free plan, and it allows me 100,000 requests per day. And if you look at it, it's really good if you want to develop on this. So yeah, this is the very first introduction video, and I hope you guys learned something. Subscribe to the channel. We have more videos coming up where we go in depth into Cloudflare Workers. I'll see you guys next time, and don't forget to subscribe.